Welcome to Dick Morris Democracy. I'm Dick Morris. As we approach the elections of 22 and 24, Republicans have so many targets. That's a problem. Inflation in gas and grocery prices and used car prices, illegal immigration, fentanyl flowing in through open borders, crime and murder surging, killings of police officers, the war in Ukraine caused by U.S. weakness, the domination of education by the radical left that shuts out parents from decision-making, the stifling of charter schools, runaway government spending, enormous deficits, federal debt, rising interest rates that endanger economic recovery, ongoing unjustified and unneeded restrictions on our liberty left over from COVID, Iranian progress toward nuclear weapons, encroachments on the Second Amendment, the counterculture, and so many more. How do you summarize all that for a political campaign? What slogan can possibly express the range of our concerns and the fact that all these problems did not exist when Trump was president and the Republicans ran Congress? Well, I have a suggestion. The slogan I suggest is very simply two words: had enough. The ideas of Marshall McLuhan, so well elucidated in his 1964 classic, Understanding Media, and his 1967 work, The Medium is the Message, explain how any good political slogan acts as a catalyst, stimulating the voter to take an inner mental trip through his own mind and find the ideas the slogan elicits. The power of the slogan rests entirely on what's going on and triggers a lengthy list of heartbreaks and headaches. Then you know it's hit home powerfully. The massive discontents brought on by the misgovernment of the Biden administration will likely unleash a torrent of anguish if it's catalyzed by the right slogan. Had enough has a good track record as a successful slogan. In 1946, the Republicans used it to undo decades of Democratic congressional majorities. The Republicans didn't know where to turn in that campaign, just like now. Post-war inflation, the unemployment of returning servicemen, the growing menace of Stalin's Russia, post-war food shortages, corruption, and a nationwide railroad strike baffled Republican strategists. They were unable to choose a singular theme, so they asked voters if they had had enough of Democratic rule. It turned out that they had. The GOP captured control of both houses, gaining 56 seats in the House and 12 in the Senate. Had enough will have a different meaning for each voter as it resonates with his or her specific problems and worldview. Just as Trump's successes and Biden's failures have no singular focus but proceed across a broad spectrum of issues, so the slogan "had enough" gives voters the intellectual leeway, in effect, to each design his or her own campaign. It's like the Army used to use as a recruiting slogan, "An Army of One," emphasizing the skill of each soldier, particularly when it's married to sophisticated weaponry and technology that our military has developed. In a similar sense, "had enough" describes a presidential campaign that is different and geared to each individual voter. For some, "had enough" will mean galloping inflation and the sharp decrease in the buying power of the average family. With each click of the gas pump, we feel that we have had enough as we see the cost of a gallon marching up ruthlessly to $60 or $70 a gallon to fill a tank of gas, and we know next week it'll get worse. For others, "had enough" will refer to America's global impotence, indecision, and weakness as each night brings us ever more ghastly atrocity photos from Ukraine. Many of us will realize that we've had enough when we see illegal immigrants pour over the border, often enabled and not blocked by our own government. Mothers will feel that they've had enough each night as they see how woke ideology is transforming our schools into cults of alternative values and sexuality. The recent focus on the rights of parents is offsetting the leftward drift of our suburban communities. A lot of us will feel we've had enough with each mugging or murder on the streets right outside our door. With 105,000 drug overdoses in the past 12 months, we've all had enough of the flow of fentanyl over our open southern border. as inflation forces the Fed to raise interest rates, and we see how they're driving us into recession, we'll all have to take notice. And Biden's a gift that keeps on giving. Had enough is an open-ended slogan that won't lose its relevance until Biden loses his office. The closer Iran gets to the bomb and the more China eyes Taiwan menacingly, the more we will have had enough of this incompetence and weakness. And finally, when we see our president unable to remember much of anything, confusing past and present, confounding the world by threatening regime change in Russia, imagining that he's addressing troops bound for Ukraine right after he's decided not to send them, when we see the manifest cognitive dysfunction in our elected president, we have indeed had enough. So as much as it might be fun for us to list the many problems Biden has caused and those he has failed to solve, we need to let each voter fill in the blanks for himself.
You just watched Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news channel, now in more than 70 million homes. You can get Newsmax TV on your cable system or check your cable guide. And if your system doesn't carry Newsmax, call them, tell them you want Newsmax TV, because we're real news for real people.